There you go.
Yes, no. Okay. Good.
The question is, last week was recorded, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Last week was recorded?
Yeah.
Okay. People are obviously different in terms of their drive. Let's call it drive. Spiritual drive. That's an appropriate term, you know. Obviously, some people are born much more spiritually driven than others. It's clear like that, you know. I'm not talking about character traits. It's a different story. Some people are more gentle. I mentioned the difference. What's the difference between personality and temperament? Remember the distinction. Temperament is what you're born with. Some kids are born very active. You know, some kids are always crying. Some kids are just quiet. Don't say anything, you know. They're content. Some kids are very reactive to stimulus. Anything, you know, too much light, too much sound, and so on. And so on. There's an enormous difference between children, infants. Even if they're like, 1 week old. You see the difference. That's inborn. That's called temperament, not personality. As a child grows up, the child interacts with the real world. It learns who it is. It has to learn what's called, it has to learn itself that it is an object, that reality is out there, because a infant doesn't really realize that. It thinks it is a total reality. And then it begins to separate reality from itself. It realizes that it has needs, that it has to satisfy those needs, and it begins to really figure out what in the world is going on. You know what I'm saying? So what it does as a result of its own inner needs, its own realities, in the sense that what it experiences, you know, it begins to put together a mode of reaction or adaptation. That's called personality. Personality is learned, not genetic. Temperament is genetic. You're born with it. Personality, however, is a learned response. It's a learned pattern, you know. That's why if you take a kid and put him in a different type of situation, he will develop a different personality. So personality is really a learned adaptation pattern. How do I adapt to the world around me? And that depends, again, on the self, the person, and the environment that he's in. Yeah, well, it's all part of it.
Do you mean, like, for example, my son is he's not in the corner. He's a pretty outgoing kid.
Okay.
But today the Rav came to visit.
Let's see.
The Rav of my community came to visit my mother-in-law.
Oh,
and
okay.
All of a sudden, like,
who?
Not shy. My son suddenly became a little subdued and shy because it was the Rav came to my house, which was out of context for him.
Yeah, okay.
It's a new experience, let's
Okay.
say. He was much calmer, shy, contrary to the way he usually is.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
That's normal. It is normal. I'm
Sure.
just trying to define.
But, so personality, and after a while, when a person develops a personality, it remains what's called characterological. That's his character. That's how you identify a person. When you say you're out of character, what it really means is there's something different here. This is not the norm of your personality. Because you have deviated from your pattern of adaptation. You see, you know, that can, for many reasons, brain damage, medication, whatever, can alter your pattern of behavior. And so, you know. But getting back to, so within that context, so you can learn to be more spiritual. If you see parents who are very spiritual, if you have uncles, aunts, relatives, you go to yeshiva and your Rebbe, you know, you learn to be more spiritual, and so on, you know. So that's certainly one of the very important ways. That's why it's so important for a child to have good friends. That's one of the most important things, because a child will pick up an enormous amount of what's called values. That's really what it is. Spirituality is a value that a child will pursue if he recognizes that it's a value. If he gets into a whole bunch of guys who are, you know, they couldn't care less, then he's going to obviously learn that spirituality is not a value. Who cares? That's why who you hang around with is critical of what values you will have. You know, it's not only true for kids, it's also true of adults. You know, if you live on a block where your neighbors are Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, Rabbi Yaakov Kamletsky, Rabbi Kotler. I mean, you're not going to be the same guy as you are if, you live in a neighborhood that's, there's gambling going on and this, obviously I'm going from one extreme to the other. You're going to change, Besides that, man is a social being. He's nimshach after society. We're always checking out what people think, always. Part of the reason is because you want to be accepted by people. That's obviously a very important human need, to be accepted by people. So we're always looking around, and therefore, because we're social beings, that will determine our behavior to a great extent. You see. In any case, there are many facets of what determines behavior, but ruchnius, like I said, can be determined by, again, by, authority figures, parents, peers, many things. That's why, like I say, it's very important to go through positive spiritual experiences and not negative, and so on. There's also another element. I'm not going too much into this, but just as a carryover from last week, there's also another aspect of ruchnius that has to do with neshamas. If a person came down and he worked on himself in a previous gilgul, then his neshama will be much higher. He will have gotten his ruach. He'll come down first as with a nefesh, which is the lowest part of the neshama. But as time goes on, if he truly is oimid v'nisoyin, if he truly will succeed in passing a lot of nisyonis and working on himself, then when he's born again, if he has to be born again, right, what will happen is he will come down with not just the nefesh, he will come down with a ruach, which is the second level of neshama, which is much higher.
You mean a connection to his world?
The connection to the Rabban Shalom is much higher.
No, I'm saying that everybody has the 5 levels in the
yeah, everybody, yeah.
So he has, but in this state, he will have a connection to that. He'll already be born with a connection to that higher level of the neshama.
Yes, yeah. And all of a sudden, so what happens is when a person is born not only with a nefesh, but with a ruach, then his consciousness is different. All of a sudden, he's a different kind of person, He's much more aware of beyond physicality. Ruchnius. So that also is a very big, very important factor. So many times, So many times you'll see kids who you see are really spiritually driven. Then you know that it's because somehow he's probably came down with his ruach, because like I said, when you come out with the second part of your neshama, your consciousness is different. You have a much greater drive to spirituality, much more conscious, and so on. And if you come down with your neshama, which is the third aspect, then, forget it. You'll come down like a person with unbelievable capacity for ruchnius. Even though you may not have it. You see, you may have an incredible capacity for ruchnius, because you now have not only the nefesh, the ruach, but you have the neshama as part of your... Neshama is a collective term. It's also an individual term. Okay? For those who don't know, the neshama has 5 parts. Going from the bottom, you have nefesh, ruach, neshama, chay, and yechida. So that's an individual. Neshama is an individual term. And neshama also is collective for all 5. But if you come down with the individual thing called neshama, then you come out with an awesome spiritual drive. The spiritual potential is awesome. These are the kind of guys, even without that become, incredible tzaddikim and kedoshim, because they already come down having worked out, and they've come down with a greater access to their neshamas, much more intense, and so on. So you have to combine the two, and so on. You meet people who have no desire whatsoever for spirituality. You meet these people, you look at them and you're like they couldn't care less, or they're heavy into gashmias. You meet people like this, they're very much into the physical, So probably, they have only a nefesh, and they are denied their ruach and their neshama, and so on, and therefore they have very poor spiritual consciousness, core spiritual drives and so on. Does that mean it's static? No, it can be changed, it can be increased, but obviously requires much more work, you know. So in a certain sense, your level of drive to become spiritual, in a certain sense, is a measure of what do you come down with, you know?
So did everybody start out the same and then they worked on it and then in the next Gilgal they came down? Or
basically everybody will start out
I'm just saying,
yeah.
is it possible a person from day one, the first Gilgal, if you want to call it that, already came down with a connection to a higher part of the Shema?
Yeah, because there's another aspect. It's not only your own neshama. The next aspect is what is your neshama tied to? You know, if your neshama is tied to a higher area of ruchnius, then even if you come down with a nefesh, you will be much greater spiritually driven. You know, in a certain sense, you could look at Adam Rishon, his body. Where'd you come from? In neshama, he was the totality of all neshamas. So the question is, which part of you is him? Are you part of his leg? I hate that, you know, it's like that, you know. Are you part of his brain, his heart? You know, then it means the neshama configures itself almost like a human in that sense, you know. So obviously, not only it's which part of Adam did you come from, how much of that chelik in Adam do you have? You see, so there's a whole bunch of factors here. Where in Adam Rishon are you? How much of that chelik in Adam Rishon do you have? You know what I'm saying? And then how much did you do in the previous Gilgal that you'll come down with that greater portion? You know what I'm saying? So all of these three ideas will all contribute to your spiritual drive, your spiritual objective, and so on. But in the end, that shouldn't really make a difference for you. You know? Because a Jew can access incredible things, no matter where he is or what he is. Why is that? Because ultimately, you're a neshama. And that itself is your neshama that has these 5 parts. I don't care where you came from and how much and so on and so forth. You know what I'm saying? Wherever you're placed, at which level, you can begin from that level and go up. You know? Ein davar oimed lefnei ratzon. There is nothing that stands in the way of a person's will. You know what I'm saying? So will is determined by what? What determines what you want, really? Am I no? Lefnei ratzon. Nothing stands as an impediment to the will. What determines will? Who knows? Will anybody answer? No? What? No.
No. That's what you want.
Because you don't want the Hashem to influence you. It takes away your bechira.
What gave you the will? That means all of a sudden you're standing and you want to do something good. What gave you that? I want to do something good now.
But that's my question. What gives
It's
you
not the Shmaya.
No, the Hashem doesn't want. He can't. Well, that's okay.
I'm saying that.
Or would it be that
Hashem
sometimes
I'm giving you
motivation?
opportunity now. See if you'll do it.
Yes, but remember, will is part of your bechira. It's part of your free will. Free will,
To do
right?
it,
That's
that means I can
they
take
call it free will. You know what I'm
I
saying?
can take you to the water. I can make you drink. So
Yes.
So that's.
But that's free will, isn't it?
Is it?
If you want to drink, isn't that free? So if that's free, then Hashem can't give you free will. He's not going to make you be a tzaddik, or else what's the whole point? You know what I'm saying?
The idea to do something good. That's the siyat Shema.
Yes. Well, okay. Yeah. You mean the concept itself? Yes, that could be said in Shema, but that will not get you to do it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Okay, that's fine.
Could it be
But
that
the question then is,
a lot of will?
what gives you the ideas?
Combination of nature and nurture, not to be simplistic.
Yeah, well, okay. You have to,
Hodgepodge.
number one, you have to learn. You have to be exposed to realities, ideas. Somebody understands what he should be doing is different than somebody has no idea at all. So ultimately, we're a product of several factors here. One is drive, innate drives. You know what I'm saying? Another is, well, what do you know? What have you learned? You know, when it says Ein Am Haaretz Chassid, what does that mean? And Am Haaretz can't be a Chassid. That's referring directly to the fact that if you don't know, you're not going to be a Chassid. So clearly there's a concept of knowledge here. You know, you need to know what to do. And then you can make a choice. You can't make a choice out of ignorance. You know? So therefore knowing, learning, thinking, investigating, these are all critical to having the options of choice.
So will itself, it can be said not to have a source.
Is what?
Will itself can be said not to have a source. In other words, the will is choosing from a smorgasbord of options.
Yeah.
Whether it's learned, it's this and that. But the will itself is you.
Free.
Is you.
Yeah.
So you can't. You are the will. So you
yes. But there are certain things that will, like I said, will
influence.
increase the probability.
Okay. So
And without knowledge, that's what Ein Haaretz Chassid means. You don't have the knowledge. You can't choose that because you don't know anything about it.
The truth is that if Rav says that the area of Bechira, it's only an area of Bechira, but outside of Bechira, really, a person can want to do something, but let's say it's outside that realm, so he'd want it anyway.
He'd what?
Let's say the nature. That's the thing with you have a Nikudas HaBechira. The Bechira is only a very short area, so in other words, everything else is either you've already conquered that ground or it's beyond your Bechira right now. The person, in other words, a person, I don't necessarily not have a Bechira to stay up all night learning. I'm not holding there yet. So that's not where I'm Bechira. I'm not going to choose.
Look at it as what's called the Bechira field.
Okay.
How's that sound?
Okay.
Field means where your Bechira is operative.
Right.
Yeah, okay. At any given moment, it's operative only within a narrow field.
But outside Bechira, you can have a will, but the will will be already predetermined by different influences. The will itself.
Well,
Either I've already habitualized the will into me so that I can will something, but it's not because I chose to do it, but because that's what I program myself to do.
You've created a habit.
Right.
Oh yeah, but creating the habit itself was based on free will. Yeah, if you create a certain pattern or direction, you know what I'm saying, you will have created much more likelihood that you go in a certain direction. But that original direction itself was created through free will. Oh yeah, so you will clearly increase the odds. Yeah, you know, if you sin all day long, what are the, right? Whatever that is.
I mean, people bring the example that, let's say, I don't have Bechira to knock down an old lady and steal the purse. I never had that choice, Derech Hashem. It was always outside my realm of Bechira because, Derech Hashem, I grew up in such a situation.
Yeah, that's because you don't knocking down an old lady, as you say, is not part of your value system.
Right. I'm saying that
it's
something I had to habitualize. It's already.
But that's all part of learning. That's all part of learning what the values are.
The part of nature. There are people born with a chromosome that have an inclination in crime, and they don't want to do it. They try to be talked out of it. And it also, I've seen with people in work and with students that aptitude is important. Some people just seem to find their niche. I've come across students very young that have an ability, they want to be an engineer, and they happen to be good at drawing, and they happen to be able to they just find their wagon or hitch their, whatever, they just find their way.
That's a search. That's Siyata Dishmaya.
It's like the unconscious is telling them, this is your inclination.
Yeah, and God is telling the
athletics. Like, this kid knows himself pretty well, he's on the road. I could see him going into that field.
That is Siyata Dishmaya. That idea to become an engineer is really Hashgacha Pratis. That's God. He didn't just think this up. Moshe planted in his mind, so he should go in that direction.
So,
and hopefully he will have the abilities, to become an engineer.
So is,
that's really not Bechira.
So do we will this up with Bechira, or
no.
Sometimes it comes to us and directs us, something from inside?
That's
like
it.
A calling, like, something's telling me.
That's it, yeah.
I should devote myself to this, and then they are successful.
So I'm answering you. That already is Hashgacha Pratis. A great deal of the ideas that we get is from the Rebbeinu Shalom. In fact, we would be appalled at how much he's telling us. Yes, we think, well, I'm creative, I figure out everything, nobody's going to tell me anything. No, it doesn't work that way. 99% of what's in our brain is God. 1% is our free will. Well, what about what's in your brain? What do you want to do with it? That's free will. But the whole stage, the whole framework of all this stuff is the Rebbe Shalom. We need to pick and choose within that framework, you see, and that's Bechira. But all the ideas are not your ideas, Guy all of a sudden, all of a sudden he says, well, I like Warren Buffett. Here's a classic example, Where did he get the idea? Why is he so driven in the stock market? He was very young. He was a freak in a certain sense that nobody in his class ever thought he was out of his mind. He's a teenager guy who loved to study stocks, statistics. He was into that, Well, obviously, so once he got into that, then he began to invest slowly, and he was worth, $50 billion, something like that, and where he's standing, Is that him? No, of course not him. It's the Rebbe Shalom. For whatever reason, the Rebbe Shalom said, you need to be a person that is fabulously wealthy. Him and, who's the Microsoft guy, Gates? All these guys, they're fabulously wealthy. It has nothing to do with them. Nothing. They were driven, or they were preordained, it's probably a better word, to be these multi-billionaires, which means that they were all driven in the way that Hashem knew it would be successful, and he said, okay, do this, and lo and behold, they became successful. That's why I love when there's studies about, what's the secret to his success? And the answer is, God. That's
we'll never
it.
see that.
Of course,
In the study.
of course, the mechanism of how they became successful, the Baruch knew that he's going to make this stock go up, so he told that guy, you need to invest in that stock. You know what I'm saying? So the Baruch knows what he's doing, and so on, and he just told this guy, because I want you to become fabulously wealthy, I'm going to put it into your mind, or I'm going to give you the information that you need to know that will obviously influence your decision, and lo and behold, they coincide, and there they are, Of course, they don't realize that, they don't recognize that, they all think it's, koich v'yotzim yadi, as the Torah says, my strength and my power has done this. It's nonsense, It's like the Baruch Hashem says, Kili hazov ha'kesev. It's my money. I mean, he says it, he says, who are you kidding yourself? It's my money, my silver, my gold. That's all. And I decide who I'm going to give any of this. You see? So what the Baruch Hashem does is he puts into your mind, and you make the right choice, and all of a sudden you made $1,000, whatever, and there it is. That's all it's about, and so but in any case, but we don't realize that. So, but anyway, the spiritual drives are a result again of these several factors. It's a combination of But in the end, what's important to remember is that you have the choice. Even if you have a low level neshama, it doesn't make a difference. You still have a neshama, and that's all you need to get up there. Because once you have that and you decide it correctly, then guess what? You will become more ruchnius, and so on. Just because you've started on a lower rung and somebody started on a higher rung, you see what I'm saying? All it will affect is the amount of ruchnius in a certain sense, but the reward you get isn't the amount of ruchnius you acquired. It's what's the percentage that you did in terms of where you are.
So how do you reconcile?
You see what I'm saying? It's the percentage. When it says Yochel Kol Adam Niyas K'Moshe, everybody can be like Moshe Rabbeinu. I think the Rambam says that. What does that mean? It certainly can't be Moshe Rabbeinu. That's sure not, But reward doesn't depend on your level of achievement, really. It depends on where did you start from, where did you end, and what's the percentage of your achievement, and that's your reward. So it comes out, somebody started very low, and has reached a certain percentage, 80% of his capacity, let's say, and somebody else started very high, and he's only reached 20% of his capacity. Well, guess what? The guy with the 80% is way ahead of the guy with the 20, even though the guy with the 20 is greater in ruchnius, or maybe he has an incredible head. It's like the Vilna Goyen used to say, can you be a Vilna Goyen? No. They're not going to be from the guy. You will never know as much as he does. Because he was given a head. He probably had something like 200 IQ. You know, if you measure IQs. And so on, you know? So you can't know as much as him. Okay, how long you learn? You don't have the head for it, you know? But you can, so they asked him, you know, so what do we all do? So he said, Ein moinen daben shows. They don't count pages, they count hours. It doesn't make difference how much you know. It's how many hours did you do? That's what they count, and the schar of Ilam Haba depends on that, not on how much you know. That's a very important concept.
Productivity doesn't count.
What?
Productivity doesn't count.
Yeah, it's Amelis that counts. It's
Amelis.
effort. That's why it says, Hema Melim Vanachna Melim. They put in effort,
Right.
and nothing happens. Who cares? We put in effort, and that's everything. You see, you know, it's good. What all they're interested is product. Hey, you know your stuff. You know your stuff. Great. Not you're out. You spent 20 hours studying for the test. Who cares?
I know it's the plaque.
What?
I know it's the plaque on the wall, and that's it.
Well, yeah. Well, by them it's the achievement itself. In Judaism, it's not the achievement. It is the effort expended toward the achievement. That's everything. That's why it says. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Huh?
Yep.
Okay. Yes.
Let's try for Yid today to get a palace like Moshe Rabbeinu.
It is shach, yeah. It's very hard.
Obviously.
But it is possible, yeah. If a person exerts himself in an unbelievable way, it is possible, yeah. You know, look, there's a Gemara that says that Abaya, Rava used to hear a bas kol once a year. That's what it says. Now, Rava, there's not 3 pages in the Gemara that goes by without Rava being mentioned. That just tells, right? Shas says 2,711 pages. 3 pages never goes by without Rava not being mentioned, which is astounding. Rava died, I think he was 35 or 33. It's beyond belief, you know. So he heard a bas kol once a year. Abaye heard a bas kol once a week. Not bad. No, imagine hearing a bas kol once a week.
What's this Basco?
What?
Well, what are they hearing?
Whatever. I don't know. I don't know if it says what they heard. You know. I mean, people who are psychotic hear bas kols every day. Right? That's what they think. So, right? But then Gemara says that there was a doctor, Abba Umno, heard a bas kol every day. So, like, how is that possible? That a doctor heard it every day, and Rava, who was among the greatest of the Moraim, we have no idea who Rava was, heard it once a year. So I think Rava went to check it out. Who is this guy? Right? Clearly Rava knew infinitely more than this doctor. Nobody even argues against that. So how is it possible that this person obviously was connected to Shemayim much greater than Rava? Because that's what it means. If you hear a bas kol, what does it mean? It means that the dimension of Ruchnius is open to you. That's what it means. Not just I heard a voice. No. It means that you have entered that dimension. And therefore that dimension is exposed to you. So it's not just the voice, it's the whole, 9 yards that comes with it. Any case, so he went and checked it out, and he found that this person was a doctor. This was an incredible kind of doctor. He was unbelievable, took some patience. He made sure in terms of confidentiality, privacy, very makbid on that, He treated each person with unbelievable compassion. If they had no money for medicine, he would buy them the medicine. He was just an incredible doctor, And apparently that type of service was greater than what Rava did. And I don't know why, but apparently in Shemayim that was considered greater. And therefore he was allowed into the environs of the Ruchnistic dimension more than Rava. Now of course Rava was incredible in terms of what Rava knew, but apparently in terms of connection to Ruchnius, Abba Omni was greater. So what does that show you?
But what about the statement of all these acts of kindness, but learning Torah is equivalent to them all?
Yeah, it is. Talmud Torah Keneged Kula. You know, it's
Should
true.
supersede the...
But apparently what he did in Chesed, or Achmanis, or whatever it was greater than what Rabbi did. You know? Does that mean in Olam Haba he will be greater than Rava? We don't know. No, doesn't mean that. But in terms of his access to Ruchnius here, he had achieved more. Yeah. Like I said, you know, he had achieved more. Moshe Rabbeinu also achieved more. But if a person could be as great as Moshe Rabbeinu, right, then Olam Haba. See, Olam Haba is a different measure. You know, you could be great in Ruchnius here, but in Olam Haba you could be much greater. The ultimate proof of all this is, I am not sure, I don't remember who it was, I'm not sure it was Rabbi Shulman Levi, or the son of Rabbi Shulman Levi. He went to Shemayim, and then he came down, which means his consciousness was aware of Shemayim, you know, the heavenly spheres. Then he came down, and they asked him, well, what did you see? So he said, I saw Olam Hofachu. I saw, as they say in Yiddish, a verdreht the world. I saw a topsy-turvy world. That's how you would say it in English, you know? Which means that whoever is great here was fundamentally nobody there. There is nobody, but it's, you know, and whoever was nobody here was much greater there.
But it says, then he asked him, "Can go on?" No, and he says it's the same. Didn't he say?
The what?
Didn't he say that he asked him about the Rabbanim? He said the Rabbanim are the same. They're still held in the same stature in Shemayim.
Yeah, I'm not talking about any.
The Gemara,
I'm not talking about any individual. I'm talking about, as a general rule, this is what he said. So how could that possibly be? You know what I'm saying? And the answer is because we don't know the measuring stick. We don't know what it is. You know, you could look at a guy who really seems to be very poor in knowledge of learning and so on, yet he could be great in Olam Haba. That's really what it means. We lack the ability to judge people in terms of where they will be in Olam Haba. We can see where they are here, that's true. That this guy is much greater, but seeming so, than this guy, that's true. Because we judge by acts, we judge by social, you know, he's a Rebbe, so he's going to get his Olam Haba is much greater, you know. But that Rebbe may be lower than all of his Hasidim in Olam Haba, would be quite a twist. You know, why? Because we don't know we don't really know how they judge in Shemayim. It's much more complicated than, obviously, by looking at the fact that he's a Rebbe. To them, Shemayim, that he's a Rebbe means zero. Doesn't mean anything. Why? Because his job is to be a Rebbe. But within the context of that job, is he doing it? You hear the word? It's simply a position. That's all. But it's not the position that you have that determines Olam Haba. It's what do you do with your position? You know, maybe the Rebbe, I'm not saying in any way that Rebbe's are this, don't get me wrong, I'm just trying to give an example. Maybe this Rebbe thinks he's God's gift to the planet, who knows? But he doesn't say that. But maybe the Rebbe's a Moed Bal Gaiva. You know? And I'm not talking about what he says. He's not going to tell you I'm it, but maybe he thinks he's it. And that's enough to destroy or really substantially lower, you see. Or maybe the Rebbe, you know, doesn't have enough compassion for the Jews. You see? Maybe. We would never know. Or maybe the Rebbe is unavailable. You know? People are trying to get in, and it's impossible because he doesn't know how to manage his Hasidim. And so on. You know, we don't know the measure, but just because his position is to be a Rebbe, that's a positional statement. It is not an avoided statement. This is the mistake we all make. You see? You see? Very important distinction. What matters in Shemayim is what do you do with your position. What your position is a gift is given to you based on what your tikkun is. And so on, you see? That's the Olam Hofach. Because we look at a guy, we say, wow, what a position. He's a Magen Shir. He's a this, he's a that. But that's a position, you see. And the Vilna Gaon understood that when he said, they don't count pages. My position is to know Kol HaTorah Kula. That's my, and therefore I was given an IQ with the ability to learn and all the time and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, But so what? That doesn't mean my Olam Haba is going to equal to my level, you know. But his 24 hours a day, that's a different story. You know, because he could have taken his head and gone elsewhere with it, you know. Don't be fooled by position. That's the mistake everybody makes. Don't be fooled by role. His role is this, but that does not determine your Olam Haba, you see. And that's what the Funsara Agra is. We don't know. You know. Meanwhile, take a look at a guy, and he's a zero. He's a nobody. But you don't know what goes on in his mind. You know. Maybe he eats himself up all day long because he's not an oived. You know. Maybe it bothers him that his feet is not good enough. You know, or his learning isn't enough. Who knows, you know? That's Agmas Nefesh that this person has, that he doesn't have ruchnius. In Shemayim, that could be worth infinitely more than somebody who learns and is doing fabulous. You know, he's the next Rosh Yeshiva of the Yeshiva, and so on. What do we know, really, you know? And so on. So this guy who's basically a regular guy, and he goes to work, and he really wants to learn, and it bothers him that all the kind of stuff and so on, you know, and he tries his best and so on. Who knows, maybe he's 1,000 times 1,000 miles ahead of the other guy, who's a Rosh Yeshiva and so on. Don't be fooled, you know. That's what it is, you know, we can't judge. That's what it means. The Fumsara Agra. So therefore, there's hope. There is hope. You know. So, you know. That it doesn't necessarily depend on your achievement level. It does depend on your desire and how much you really want to get there. Your avodah. There are many other things that contribute to where you are in Olam Haba. Okay? That is a statement. And that's what Olam Haba really means. Don't be fooled by somebody's role or position. Shemayim means nothing. It's what you do with the role or position. Did you fulfill the requirements or not? That's what counts in Shemayim. And that's what counts altogether. Because that's eternity. Olam Haba is the Olam Voya. You know what I'm saying? And that's what Olam Haba really means. You know? And he spelled it out. Don't be fooled by positions. Well, he's a Rebbe, he's a Rosh Yeshiva. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying Rosh Yeshivas are on the low end of the totem pole. Don't go get me wrong. No, obviously there are many great people and so on. But that's not the determinant at all. That's why you never know who you meet. You may meet a regular guy in the street, and he could be the next tzaddik in Olam Haba.
Be a Lamed
He could be a Lamed Vovnik, yeah, it's classic, you know, and so on. Who do you know? You never know.
It's complicated. The level of someone.
It's not that it's complicated. The criteria is different. The measuring yard scale is different than what we imagine.
On the other side of the coin, the ruchnius someone has is given to them at birth, based on what someone's capacity for consciousness and spiritual consciousness.
Yeah.
But there is a merit if someone puts the time in to learn the pages, so to speak. It's not easy to do. So someone who is learning when everyone else is cutting.
Of course, I'm not minimizing the effort of learning Torah. Of course, it's critical, but that's not. You can't look at it and say, "Well, this guy knows Shas by heart." That's not what Olam Haba is about. How much effort did a guy put in to know Shas by heart, and so on. You see, we cannot measure Amelus. Only God measures Amelus.
It's interesting because there was something I read. I remember said the Maharal, when he went to a town, he was new there, and the principal showed him how the boys were learning in the yeshiva, and these young boys were sweating out, memorizing page after page after page. He wanted to change the whole thing. This is not good for them. Just to try to remember, slow down a little bit at their age, you know, let it sink in a little bit. I guess Be'in more so. So the principal was showing off how these boys, not in a guy's way, like how much they know, and they were all stressed out, the kids, just from memorization. And he wanted to change the curriculum where the point is how many.
That's the concept of educational objectives. What was this, Maral you saying?
Yeah.
I mean, is this a desired educational objective where a kid can memorize something rote? And obviously he felt no. You're lacking understanding. You know, just rote memorization is not what it's all about. You need to understand what you're saying. So that's educational objective, but that's part of what the whole task is. It's not, it's not necessarily connected to what I'm saying. You know. Anyway, that's a very important concept. Don't be fooled by a position or a role of a person. You know, we cannot judge. Therefore, whoever you meet, you never know who that person is. Therefore, you can never be arrogant because you don't know. Maybe that guy's bigger than you. Who knows, really? You know, it's an interesting concept. Anyway, I think we've covered the subject. You know, so anyway, there's a concept of stages, which is what the Ramchal now talks about, the concept of stages of time. What's the determinant of all the stages of the world, which we'll go through? The world seems to have 8 stages. Okay? And the question is, what's the fundamental principle of which these things are stages of? You know what I'm saying? It's like a person grows. He starts out as an infant, into a toddler, to a child, into a preteen, teenager, adult, older person, senior citizen, whatever. What are they stages of? And the answer is?
Life.
Who?
Life.
Life. That's very general. What are they stages? Too general. in fact.
Time.
Who?
Life.
No. They have, I just outlined different
Development?
stages. Who?
Development?
Yeah, growth. There are stages in the growth or the life or development of a human being. Okay? So when we look at history, world history, Hashkafa, right, we can identify stages. You know what I'm saying? And what are these stages of? That's the question. What's the central idea that determines the stages of who?
Of history.
Of history, yeah. Jewish history. Because world history is very different. Stages of world history is who rules? Is it the Babylonians that are on top? Persians? Romans? You know, is it America? Iraq? Like, what's going on here? You know, who's on top and who's on bottom? Those are the stages of world history, you know. But in Judaism, it's irrelevant who's on top and bottom. What's the principle? And the answer is one word. Tikkun. The rectification of the Bria. That's all that matters. You see, everything else is irrelevant. Tikkun simply means that this world is headed in a certain direction. There's a specific objective that has to be achieved. So the question is what? Who is doing that? You see? So if we look at it that way, we can identify what seems to be 8 stages. Stage 1.
Adam.
Who?
Adam.
No.
Mm.
Stage 1.
Earth.
No. Stage 1.
In vitro.
Who?
Yeah, something goes on during that stage.
In vitro.
Mikhail, we're learning everything.
Who? No, I'm talking about mankind. You're talking about individual. No, forget individual. I'm talking about we're looking at global Jewish history. Stage 1 is what? Pre-Adamic, pre-Adam, the neshama itself. Right? That neshama has a real problem. What's the problem?
Can it interact with the Omazeh?
No, it's a real problem that exists. Before Adam, in the world, in Olam HaNeshamas, there's a real problem. What is that?
Naam Diksufa?
Naam Diksufa, that's it. The neshama has incredible shame. Or shame is really the emotion that corresponds. But it has an incredible feeling of inferiority. That's really what it is. The neshama.
Pre-Adam.
Pre-Adam.
Before anything ever
Yeah, it's
happened.
Olam HaNeshamas. We forget about anything
It
else.
still doesn't want to come down.
has a
What?
negative-
It still doesn't want to come down.
Yeah, well, whatever.
Why does it start with a negative instead of an optimistic, joyful celebration type of?
It doesn't because I want to get a share on that. It starts with the neshama has what's called a nahamadik sufa, it's bread of shame. It exists existentially in a state where it has an incredible inferiority complex. Even though that's a psychological term, but since there are no spiritual psychotherapists, it can't go to any one of these, besides there's no coverage. Anyway, it will take years to cure. This probably is a problem. No, you can't ask a question, I just want to get this out. Okay, that's what's called pre-Adamic, or Olam HaNeshamas. Yes, that's where it starts. It's a neshama. Neshama has a real problem. Nahamadik sufa. There's an incredible sense or feeling of inferiority, and as such, there's an incredible shame. Remember what shame was? What is shame? What is shame? You should be ashamed of yourself.
It's a lessening of existence for self.
Yeah, that's certainly a consequence. But shame is what? Is the exposure of a vulnerability of self. You're ashamed. Because all of a sudden, something has been exposed that you're vulnerable, which usually means you're inferior. You know what I'm saying? Shame is a critical emotion. That's not really given its due in psychology. Shame is the feeling, like I say, when something is exposed to you, that you are inferior, that creates the emotion called shame. And the neshama has it, because right now it takes in from the Rebbeinu Shalom. It's a complete taker, no giver. And that clashes with its feeling that it's also chelik l'kamimal. There's a clash there. How can I be a chelik l'kamimal, right? How can I be part of God when I'm a complete taker? Because the essential idea of God is a complete giver. God doesn't take. God only gives. Although there is one thing that God takes. What's God take?
Neshama.
No?
Takes it back.
No. It's classic, although there's a slight deviation. We're getting to the end. It's a good question. How in the world do we say, Baruch Atah Hashem, blessed are you? It's impossible. If He is the source of all blessing, so how in the world can I say, blessed are you?
Isn't that what the words mean?
Yeah, that's what it means. Baruch means you should be blessed.
No,
What does it mean to be blessed?
they translate it as you are this Mekar
Source
Habaros.
of all brothers.
Yeah, the Baruch doesn't mean that. Yeah, okay, forget that.
Because that's not Pashut Pshat.
Yeah, Baruch means
Hashem change.
Baruch is a past participle, which means blessed. You are blessed. So you could say, well, you are blessed in the sense that, what does it mean to be blessed? We need a definition of that. What does that mean? That you are blessed. What does it mean when you say that? What?
Standing?
To be blessed means to be the recipient, or to be the possessor of all good things. That's what blessed means. Not a specific thing, but to be the possessor or the recipient of all good things. So we say to Rabbi, you are the possessor of everything good. You know what I'm saying? Is that what it is? Or Baruch means you should be blessed?
Could be
Both. But how could we bless God if He's the source of... If He has all good, how in the world can we say you should be blessed? We say, Yehei Shmei Rabbi Mevorach. May His great name be blessed. That sounds like He's missing something. Doesn't it? And therefore He should be blessed. How can the world can He be blessed if all blessing emanates from
His
Him?
name be seen for good.
What?
May He be recognized for the good He is. May people have the knowledge of
Oh, so what are you really saying? Yeah, one said
His name be seen in a good light. May He be blessed.
which means that He is lacking that now, you see. He is lacking something of His own
Basically, you're giving
desire.
Gilui.
What?
Basically, you're giving Gilui.
Yeah, we're the ones who have to give Him the Gilui. And without that, He doesn't have it. So the only thing He lacks, so to speak, is that He's not revealed. Nobody knows who He is. It takes Klal Yisrael to megala Him. So therefore we say, you should be blessed. What does that mean? That everybody should know Hashem Echad Shmo Echad. See? That's how we bless God. Okay? Now, the neshama, however, has that inferiority. It's a taker, not a giver. So the problem the neshama has, what do I do? So therefore, the Baruch has to create an Olam Hazeh to remove this feeling of Nam Niksufa. So the first stage of the world is called pre-Adamic, Olam HaNeshamas. But in that state, the neshama has tremendous Nam Niksufa. Okay? That's the first stage. So therefore, if the neshama can remove Nam Niksufa, that is the tikkun. So the tikkun is really for the neshama. But the way the neshama gets tikkun is the tikkun of the bria. So they're really the primary and the secondary. The primary tikkun is what? Is the removal of Nam Niksufa, or the remedying of Nam Niksufa. The secondary tikkun is that it is done through the tikkun of the bria. You see. And the third idea is done through the avodah, whatever is the requirement. So the avodah leads to what? The avodah leads to the tikkun of the world, tikkun oilam, and the tikkun oilam leads to the tikkun haneshamas. It's in that order. So therefore, question is, who does the tikkun? So first is what's called the grand setup. That's the oilam haneshamas. Then we have the first attempt at tikkun, which is Adam Rishon. He is the first individual or to attempt to do the tikkun. Okay? And that's basically it. I will continue next week because I see everybody's tired. So I will continue. And once we have that fashion, then you can begin to understand what is happening in the world and so on.
We're up to
And
the
that's what
second
John Carl is
stage
about to
tonight.
talk about. What?
You got to the second stage?
Yeah,
tonight?
all done.
Okay, first pre-Adam and then...
Well,
First the Olam HaNeshamas, and then we have Adam Rishon. Did anybody sign this?